Yes. Okay. So yeah, like I said, the first step is to create a project, then is to create a bill of material for the project. Once the bill of material has been created, we will create a production order and we will link that production order to the project. The production order will contain the bill of material that we obviously created before. Then we can start ordering our materials based on that production order that we have. Once the purchase orders are in place, I can actually go and do scheduling in the system and the system will, based on my bill of material, will schedule the dates for the different activities for that specific production order. Then we have an optional choice. If I want to, I can print the production order, which says all the materials that I need to make that tiny home. If in case I have to distribute it in-house, or I need to give it to someone on the shop floor, or from there. So that's an optional step. I can email that production order also. The print, I need not physically copy it. Then what will happen is obviously the supplier will send me the materials and I will receive them in my workshop. I will release my production order. I can choose to release my production order in advance of receiving my materials or after I receive my materials. System doesn't stop me on that front. Okay. Once I release it, that means I can start working on it in the system. So I would generally release the production order when I'm ready to start working on it, even in physical terms. Then I can issue different kinds of material to my production order based on what I have received from my supplier. And then I can mark that operation as completed as and when it is completed in real life. Yeah. I do this until I obviously my complete tiny home is ready, and then I can mark the production order as complete. Okay, and I can close it. And finally, what I will do is I will issue that finished good, which is my tiny home, to the project. What that does is all the material cost which has accumulated in the production order will now start reflecting in my project. So I know this is the material expense in that project. And of course, my billing in the project will go on as it normally does at specific points. Okay. And of course, then I have the option of looking at various reports. And that completes my whole cycle. All right. Is that okay? Any questions so far? Nathan? Kenneth?
That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So
Okay.
I will take you. Sorry.
I'll stop. Yeah, I'll just stop sharing my screen, and Bhavesh will then share his screen. I also will just let you know that I'm just temporarily going to. I'll still be here, but I'm just going to turn off my camera because I'm just going to eat my lunch while Bhavesh does that, and I'm sure you don't want to see me munching. So please. With me.
All right. Okay. There we go. I'm hoping everyone can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay. So I have the process. In case you want to go back to the process, just let me know. I can come back to this file. So like I said, the process starts with me creating the project. So the customer's called, and obviously they've said they're interested in buying a home, tiny home, and yes. So we start by creating a project. Okay. And what I've done is I've created a small template for today. Again, this does not reflect your actual project that you create in the system, but more or less it would follow the same process as well. So what I've done is I've created a project, which is fixed cost. Now, I understand that what we do is we bill the customer a certain amount in advance and then a certain amount at every critical stage of the production. And of course, the final comes when we deliver the actual home to the customer. So what I've done is I've just created 4 tasks. As you can see, the first task is an advance deposit that we take from the customer. Then in critical points wherein we will go and bill the customer. So let's say my base is ready, my installation is ready, my finalization of the product. So if I look at my revenue budget, okay, and again, this is not your actual budget in real life. It might obviously differ, but I am hoping it is close to what you actually do. At least the amount is concerned. And in my cost budget right now, I have only put material, which will be linked to my production order. In real life, you will have material, then you will also have other kinds of expenses in this cost budget.
Like labor, for example?
Correct. Since we are not tracking labor in manufacturing, we are only tracking material as part of this project. You will have labor or any other expense that you have on the project trapped over here. What this does is basically pure material cost from a production perspective is what we are going to capture.
Now, Bhavesh, on this.
Yeah.
Will the tracking of labor, will it be in the subsequent phase?
We can, yes. If that's what you are interested in, then yes.
All right, that's my first question on this. And then another question is typically sorry, I'll digress. Let's go on.
Nice. So this is my project, okay? Now, I know your typical bill of material is huge. This is just one example. Okay. As you can see, it is massive. There are many things. So for the purposes of saving time today, what I've done is I've taken a small copy. I've cut out most of the projects, most of the operations. Okay. Just to show you what it will go on. The steps will pretty much just be repetition of the previous steps, but at least you will get an idea of the general flow. So this happens to be a base. Let's say this is the base bill of material that I have. It has 4 operations. Okay. And yeah, each operation needs some material. So what I will do is I will create a copy of this. Okay. I can give it any BOM ID, but what I can do is just one second. Let me save this. I didn't save it. And I will activate my task. I will activate my project. Now, this is a suggestion. Nathan, you may or may not want to do this, but when I create the new BOM, I give the BOM the same code as my project code.
Mm-hmm.
Makes it easy to, makes it easy to link the two, or makes it easy from that perspective. But I leave that up to you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I create a copy. Okay. And now I can make changes to this bill of material based on what the customer has told me. They want to add a few things, they want to remove a few things, whatever. Because I have the base, I can just go through the whole thing and I can say. So in case of the second operation, let's say I don't want this, not required. Or if I wanted to add something, I can add. So in this case, let's say I don't need this. There we go. Done.
Mm-hmm.
And then I activate my bill of material. It is active. So I have a project.
Do you activate just by unticking the hold?
Yes.
Yep.
You see the status is gone to active.
Yep.
Yes. And basically you untick and you click on save. It'll go to active. Now, so the first thing I want to do is obviously charge the customer. The customer is supposed to pay me in advance. So what I will do is I'll say, this is what I need. I will run my project billing. And I will bill the customer for the advance. Okay. And then the AR process will take care of that. Okay. So my advance is done. Now the second step of obviously billing the customer will be as and when I finish the base. So I have created the bill of material. Next, what I'm going to do is create a production order and link it to that project. So I have the item, I have the quantity. Let's say I need to start work on this right away or in August, for example. Obviously, it won't be so early. In your case, you'll be planning maybe 3 months in advance or 4 months in advance. But let's presume I want to start it on the 1st of August, or let's say actually, yeah. And over here, the BOM ID, I will change that to the BOM that I have created. And here I will link it to my project. And click on save. So my production order is ready. Okay. I have the quantity. I'm generally presuming the quantity is 1. I have when I want to start when I envision to start the production of this. Okay. And I have linked it to my project as well. So the next thing that comes is, okay, I have this, my order is set, my production order is set. I need to start ordering materials which are specific to this production order only. So what I can do is I can go and create purchase orders from this production order. So what the system does is basically it looks at all my raw materials that are required for me to complete that production order, and it'll give me a list. Okay, so in case of this production order, I need around 6 items. This is the quantity that I need. These are the suppliers that will help me get it. Now, if you notice, there is one supplier, 1465, who can give me 3 items. Okay, there. So what the system does is, it will, I can say create, I'll say process all, and I will show you the purchase orders that the system creates. Okay, process. There we go. Now you can see the system has created 4 purchase orders. Okay, based on the supplier code that we had. Now in each, you will see the lines for that supplier, and you'll see the promise date based on your production order setup that you want. So if I want to see when the items are required, okay. So these are the 4 operations I have in my production order. So you can see the start date in the system. The system has calculated the start date based on my BOM setup. So 1st of August, I said I want to start. The second operation is on 8th of August start. The third operation is 13th August, and the fourth operation is 26th August. So each material is based on this start date. For example, the first one, which is this one, as per port, the description says. I'm guessing this is steel. So this is required by the first. So if I look at my purchase order, okay, the promise date is 1 day before when I need it, 31st of July. So when we send the purchase order to the supplier, this is what we are expecting them to deliver.
So that promise date, Bhavesh, who defines that promise date?
So we are actually we are defining that promise date, and we are updating it if Nathan changes the schedule of the production order. So let me give you an example. Okay, where is this?
I know how that works.
I've created a small generic inquiry to give you an overview. So what's happened is with this production order, these are all my purchase orders that I've created. The start date is the operation start date for each individual item. And the promise date is in the promise date of the purchase order. So if you can see, the start date is 1st August, promise is 31st 7th, 8th August, 7th, 13th, 12th, 26th, 25th. Now,
do we set that up? Do we set that up in advance when we create the BOM, or how does that work?
There's a
so
start date on the BOM.
Yep.
And there's a move transaction that happens when it moves zones, work centers. So when it moves from fabrication to framing, there's a move transaction that happens in there that tells it the start date that the transaction has occurred. There's like a planned date and then a realignment of the base at each move.
So Kenneth, when we design the bill of material, right, we have to tell the system what is the base time I will need at that operation. So in this case, there's my base. Okay. I have a finish time of 2 days. Now, the system will look at your calendar setup in the system and look at other bill of materials or other production orders working in the system and basically calculate what the start date is. So after this, obviously, by the time this operation is done, it will be the 8th. So whatever I need for the second operation will be starting on the 8th. Then I have 1 day. Now I can change this in this. So for example, when I'm in the middle of my production and I want to change this because of some unforeseen circumstance, I can do that. And the system will automatically, we've created a business event, which will automatically go and change the purchase order promise date, provided the purchase order is still open and not received. If the purchase order has been received and the line is closed, the system will not update. It cannot update. So for example, let's say my operation 2 is supposed to begin on the 8th. So where is this? As you can see, what do I need for my operation 2? I need this item. And this item belongs to this purchase order which I have created. So my promise date is 7th. And my start date is the 8th.
Yeah.
So something happens and, oh, I think I'm going to need more time. So what I do is, okay, I changed my time that I need in the system, okay, for the first phase. So my second phase, which was supposed to start on the 8th, now starts on 21st. And subsequently, everything changes. As you can see, my dates have changed for all my other operations. Yeah. Then I can do a rough cut planning in the system. What rough cut planning does is basically looks at your work center capacity and plans based on that. So okay. Now, if now I look at my purchase orders, okay, look at the dates. The start dates have changed and the purchase order promise date has been updated for all the subsequent ones. So if I open this purchase order, you can see the promise date here. This was the old one. Oh, this is the phase 1. Sorry, this is phase 1, which hasn't changed. So let's look at operation, the second operation. I think it was this one. Yes. So this is the item I need in the second operation. Look at my promise date. It's changed to 11th September. And look at the line 1 and line 3. That's actually in October. It might be the same PO, but the promise dates have changed from.
So Bhavesh.
Yes.
So those 3 line items have different promised dates. When the PO is sent to the supplier, there's only one field on the purchase order that has a promise date. It's not against each line item. So I think if there is a different promise date, there needs to be a different purchase order.
Okay, so you're printing this, is it?
Yeah, that's what prints on the purchase order as the delivery date.
Okay.
Like on the PDF version.
Okay, so two options. One is we can start printing the promise date in the purchase order for each line, and then the supplier knows. Okay, which will not be a big change. It's just
that's a bit static though.
Not this one. I'm talking about this one.
No, I know that, but when the purchase order gets sent to the supplier, it will be static. We need a report that updates, that's dynamic, and we can send out each week. You know what I mean? That will update the purchase order number and the promise date.
So, like I said, this is updating the purchase order line. If you want me to update the purchase order, it's the main one, I can do that. But this is something that you can always review.
Yeah, I think the purchase order needs to be consolidated by promised on date.
Okay, so what we can otherwise do. Okay, so I can't control that. What I can control is when I create my creation of the purchase order. So I can, instead of creating the purchase order for the entire production order in one go, I can create purchase orders separately. So click on one, create it. Click on one, create it. You know what I'm saying? Now, as you can see in this case, the supplier happened to be the same.
Yeah.
So it's done 3. So in this case, what I could have done is I could have just ticked one item, create the purchase order, then tick on the other item, so this way I would have got 3 purchase orders.
Yeah, okay. Yep. Gotcha.
Yeah. And if you want, instead of updating the line, I can update this. And that way, if you have individual purchase orders, and this would be updated, and the line, both. If that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, ideally, if you could update that promise on date with the earliest date of whatever.
Yeah.
The earliest date in the promise in all of those dates.
Yeah. So it all depends on my start date in my production order, basically.
Yeah.
This one. Yeah. Okay, just let me make a note of that. Sorry.
Okay, I've noted that.
Yeah.
So that would just be a slight change to what we have built. So we'll just do that. Just I'm not sure how long that's going to take, Pravesh, but we would need to. That's going to be additional to scope.
Well, maybe just hold off. Yeah, just quote it first before we do anything.
Okay.
Marcus, it should not take too much time. So
okay, we'll provide you.
I can talk to you about that after today's session. No worries.
Yeah, we'll provide an email how long it's going to take, and then if it's less than an hour, we'll just do it. If it's more, then we'll have a discussion with you, Nathan.
Yeah. No worries. All right. So my purchase orders are set, right? As and when I'm ready, I can release them, or I can choose to keep them on hold. But if I'm happy with them, right, I will move them from hold. And of course, my normal cycle of printing the purchase order and emailing it to the supplier will take place on that front. Now, if I do decide that I want to print and I want to share this production order internally, to the staff as and when we are close to the start date of the production order, I can just go to something called production ticket, and I can choose this and run the report. Now, there are two ways to do it. Basically, what this does is it gives me the dates for the production order, okay, and all the materials that I need. Obviously, in your case, this will be multiple pages. Obviously, your bill of material is big. In our case, it's just, in my case, at least in the CRP, it's just this. I can also choose to print it with a barcode in case, yeah, you want to use that for a scanner or anything like that. This is a completely optional step. It is not mandated. I can email it. I can export it to Excel. It's up to me. So now what happens is the supplier sends us the material and we will receive it. So I have received the steel.
Why is it not releasing it direct to the?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's releasing it to the production order, not the project.
It will not release it to the, yes, you're correct. It will not, there is no project involved in the purchase order. It is linked to your production order. You are 100% correct. Okay. So I will release this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to receive all my purchase orders. Obviously, you'll be doing this on a day in and day out as and when you receive the material, but just for the sake of this CRP. Done. Okay. So I have received all my raw materials and they are in stock. So now I decide, okay, now I can start working on my production order. So what I do is I release it. Releasing basically just says that, okay, now the production order is ready for me to issue material and close operations. Okay, so I don't need budget. So I will start by releasing material for the first operation. Okay, there are two ways, there are multiple ways to do it, but yeah. So what do I need for my first operation? I just need the steel. Yeah. There we go. So if I look at this, operation 1, the status has changed from release to in process. And look at that. The material status is saying completed. That means I have already issued it to the production order. So you know that, okay, this is already done. So I can then, there is no other material to be issued. Once as and when the operation is completed, that will take me there. I create a move transaction. What a move transaction does is actually closes that operation. That means all my materials have been issued, okay, and my operation is done. It's complete. So I will say, yes, my operation 10 is complete and quantity is 1, and I will release. Obviously, the dates and everything will be the actual date of completion. For the sake of CRP, I'm just doing everything today.
So who releases this typically? Would it be you? Would it be Pete or?
The release of the material will be, say, Steve and Bryce. That function.
Yeah.
But the move transaction, we're going to have to work out who that should be, because it's going to happen on every job.
Yeah.
Potentially every day.
Yeah. All right.
Or our TAC at the moment.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. So as you can see over here, operation 10 has been completed. Now, let me take you back to the projects. Now, if you see here, I've told the project that operation 10 is not a milestone project, a milestone step. Operation 20, 30, and 40 are. 20 is when I actually complete my base. So let me go back to my, I don't need you anymore. Yeah. And issue some more material. All right.
Can this process happen automatically?
When you say automatically, what do you?
Well, there's a lot of material to issue to a project. Is there any way to do it in a batch or?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. So I can either select which material I want to issue, or I can select all. It's up to me. So if I say select all, it's going to issue all the materials, okay, in the system to that production order. Since I am maintaining inventory in the system, I may not want to do this in advance. But that is again your internal call that you can make. But yes, you can do that in a batch. So in this case, let's say I'm issuing all of them together. Okay. And release. There we go. So if I look at my production order, okay, so you can see completed. I've issued all the materials. Everything is in process. So if I had multiple in processes going on, multiple steps, yes. Now, operation 20 is a milestone step, because this is the step where I actually bill the customer saying, I have finished the base, so I'm going to charge you some money. So let's create a move transaction. Operation 20, quantity 1, yes, and I will release it. Now, if I look at my production order details, operation 20 is complete. Okay. What this will do is it will trigger a business event in the background, which will check my project for a task which is equal to my operation code. So in this case, it's 0020. Okay. So I have a 0020 in my project. What it will do is it will go to my revenue budget and update the completed percent to 100 the minute I say that operation is completed. So if I refresh this, look at that. Okay, even in my tasks, okay, that task has been marked as completed. So the person who's managing projects, this will tell them, look at that. This operation is completed. That means there's a pending invoice for the customer. So I can run the billing.
Is there a notification linked to a pending invoice?
No. Oh, sorry.
So how would you see any outstanding pending invoices to be sent?
So I think what we can do, I mean, the minute you finish it.
Open documents by project?
No, that is once you've created the invoice, then you will look at that. But you can look at project transactions here, and or project WIP report.
Yeah.
That will tell you. The point being is when you finish the base, how does it work now? When you finish the base, someone informs the AR team, okay, it's time to invoice the customer.
Yes.
Correct? And
Yes.
they would generally go to the project and then they would create the invoice. But here, all they have to do is run the invoice. They don't have to manipulate the project. Earlier, what they were doing in your current projects, they go and mark it as 100% complete and then they bill the customer. So in this case, we are actually saying the minute, let's say that you're controlling the move transactions, Nathan, in the system, the minute you say the base is complete, you have automatically updated the project. So you can just send an email out to that person saying, I've done this. You can go and bill the customer. All they have to do is just run the billing. That's it. They can actually run this option. They don't even need to run this. When they run this, run project billing, right? They can just pick up the project and they can run it. Or this can run on a daily basis. It will automatically pick up any pending invoices and bill the customer.
Yep.
So this can be automated in case if you don't want anyone doing any, you want it to be hands-free.
So Bhavesh is so the scenario that you click there on running the billing, we have fixed price contracts now in general.
Correct.
So that would just send them that stage payment, which would say be like 20%, for example.
Exactly. Correct. So in this case, my amount for that was 15,000, right? Which I had worked out to be 20% or 25% in this case. And what the system did, Nathan, please.
Sorry, is there a setting in there that allows you in the template of the project to set the percentage of the total revenue for that project?
You have to, in the template, you can manually put in the, yes, correct. Okay. It's not a percent. Yeah. Okay.
But we can set up the project tasks as a template.
Yes. Okay. And another thing you can do is you can upload the budget from Excel. So if you think typing in is painful, you can dump it to Excel, update Excel, and then put it back.
Yep.
It's very easy that way. You can also do multiple projects update by using project budget. Gotcha. So you can update multiple projects with Excel. Okay. Not a problem. Yeah. Okay. So this way I will continue operation by operation. So as you can see, I finished my second milestone, my first milestone, and it's updated the project. Now I've already issued everything, so I don't have to worry about material. What I will do is, let's say my third operation is completed. So I'm going to complete my third operation. Okay, just to let you know, look at that, completed. If I go back, it'll automatically say, okay, operation 3 is done. Okay, so I can bill the customer. Another thing I also wanted to show you is under balances, okay, whoever is managing the project, if they look under balances, they will see a new thing called WIP. Basically, this is telling them the amount of raw materials which is being issued to the project. So once you actually complete the finished good, the WIP goes back to 0. So this will disappear. But obviously, if you have long lead times, at least the person who's looking into the project knows, okay, we have put in so much expense into the project from a material perspective.
And with subsequent phases, that'll also include labor.
Yes, correct.
All right. What about stage payments? What about payments?
So that's your income right here.
All right. Does it take the WIP out? Does it look at the balance? Say, all right, for this stage, we've released a certain amount of materials. to that stage. But we've now received the stage payment, meaning that's not WIP any longer.
So that is something the finance team has to work, because what will happen is this WIP will turn into a inventory item. It's not an expense. It's a balance sheet item. So this is actually showing up in your balance sheet as an asset right now, because what we're telling the system is I'm making a certain item. In this case, it happens to be a tiny home, but it's an item which will become a asset. So let me complete the whole step, and then you will see how this will end up here in the expense.
Yep.
Over here. Okay.
All right.
So,
Yeah.
all right.
Just
I
before
will
you go
just
on, go
Yes.
on, Bhavesh. Yeah, this is something that came up in our internal review, Kenneth, about the recognition of expenses and the timing of that. And we probably need a discussion with the accountants of the organisation and how, to comply with their particular standards under your definition of revenue recognition and expense recognition. We just need to look at that and look at options. So at
That'll
the moment,
be a subsequent phase, eh, Marcus?
well, at the moment, it's
We probably need to build
the accounting. The accounting is going to go to WIP, and will only be recognised, as Bhavesh will show you in a minute, when the project, when the production order is complete. However, you're recognising progress payments along the way, but not the expenses. That may be okay. It may be a concern to your finance area. We need to get that right, because obviously we don't want to go live and have your finance people say, hang on, this is not the right accounting entries. So that's something we probably need to investigate either sooner than later, but definitely during the earlier stages of UAT.
Yeah, we would most definitely need to do that. I think it's one of probably the main drivers for this is to get more of a hold on our WIP calculations, which will also include labor. So I think we need to have those conversations, like you said, Marcus, sooner rather than later. But I think the full WIP calculation, which includes labor, would probably only be realized with subsequent phases.
Definitely, the labour recognition is a phase 2, no doubt about that. How we recognise costs, the timing of that, we need to probably talk to your finance people now.
Righty. Noted.
Okay.
And this is only for material costs that Mark is talking about. Since we are only talking about material costs, that's what we're talking about. So, yeah, okay. So the last one, let's say I've come to my final operation and I release that.
So before we move on, so a move transaction, is it moving between the stages? So moving from framing to internal earnings, for example?
Yes.
Or is it moving between bays?
I've done it
Yes.
between teams.
Between teams.
Correct.
Right.
Because I felt moving between bays was just too much.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Correct. So as you can see over here, as soon as I move, what happens is that operation gets marked as completed. Once all my operations get marked as completed, the system marks the production order as completed. So if you see, a production order has been marked as completed. All my steps are done. All my material has been issued. And what the system has done, okay, where is inventory? It will add, now you see there's one. I have one house ready in my inventory, which will be an asset. Okay. So that's what it's done. It's added one house to my inventory. If I look at my projects now, okay.
That's the undo button.
I am. But interesting. It hasn't updated the last one.
Hit refresh on your browser.
No, that should have worked, but I will double check. Why is it not updating the last one? Okay, let me just do it manually for this time. Okay. Now, if I look at my balances, look at that. My WIP has gone to 0. The reason is when I'm issuing material to my production order, my WIP builds up. And then in my final operation, all that WIP gets transferred to my finished good. That's why I have a finished good in inventory for one, and that's the value for that finished good, which is in our case, it's the total of all the material cost that I have. So what I need to do, or Nathan will do, is once my inventory is ready, I will issue that house to the project. So I will say one, and dismiss the project. So once my house is ready, I will issue it to that project. Now, if I go and look at my project balances, you see this where material expenses, all that WIP which I had has now been transferred to the actual material expense. Obviously, in this case, it's not a complete BOM that I have, but if you have the complete BOM, then you would be closer to that 25,000 or maybe more, whatever budget you've kept, basically. So now you have the income. Now you have the income as well as your expense, and you will get the margin here, which is the actual margin.
So Bhavesh, on this,
Yeah.
So we realize income, we
Yeah.
realize the expense
Yes.
on the invoice date, or as we release it from WIP into expense.
So you will when you issue it, right, is when you actually complete the house and you issue it. So that date, whatever that date is.
All right, but now, I mean, we do, monthly financials.
Yes.
Right, we do obviously monthly financials, but the lead time for a build is typically, let's say, just shy of 2 months. All right.
Yes. Yes.
In between, month on month, we'd have WIP, we have income, we have expenses. All the income and expenses that were invoiced, sent, or received were realized in a specific month. All right. Now, what I see here is the expense, the material expense, only registered. Only registers once it's released or moved.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
But that's not
because it's manufacturing item. That's what it is.
But that's not in accordance with the accrual in our accounting system then, is it?
No, so that's why Marcus was saying how manufacturing generally works is if you're talking about an inventory item, everything, all your expenses go into that production order. And once the production order is complete, you get a finished good out of it, which is an asset. So it'll show up in your balance sheet. Yeah. And then you have to issue that asset to the project. And that will become an expense. Before that, it will show up as an asset in your balance sheet. And that's what it is. So what the accountants can do, obviously they have many ways of doing this, but at least one suggestion was at the end of the month, if you have to recognize those expenses, you can pass a reversing entry, auto reversing entry, saying, okay, this is the amount I have in WIP. I will mark that as an expense. So it's an auto reversing entry. So you will transfer that amount from WIP to expense, and in the next month, it will automatically transfer back to WIP. But that is for someone for the accountant to decide, not for me. I can only tell you how the system works, how it will take it and put it. Yeah.
Yeah, what? Just for now, some background information on this. At the moment, how we do this on a monthly basis. We obviously report on all income and expenses as per invoice date. All right.
Yes.
And the WIP calculation or the WIP is either added or subtracted from the revenue, now depending on what the WIP calculation says, right?
Okay. So
did we build more? Did we build more than we invoiced, or did we build less than than we invoiced?
Okay. So in this case, the WIP valuation will always be ready for the accountant. So then they can decide what they want to build here.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good because it takes heaps of time to sort out the WIP on a monthly basis. So
yeah. So here the WIP will be ready. At least as far as material WIP is concerned, it will be ready and waiting for them. Without them having to do anything.
One option, depending on the discussions we have with the finance team. From an accounting perspective, and I'm an accountant myself, so I live and breathe this stuff probably far too much, is, as Bhavesh said, the system talks about, from a manufacturing perspective, the expenses is recognised at the completion of the process. Now, in your particular case, where the manufacturing process can take quite a bit of time because obviously it's a home that doesn't get built in a day. Therefore, we do have this timing issue. So, different options that we could talk about is, one, do we actually say the WIP account is actually an asset account, or do we just specify that as an expense account and sits in your P&L as a sort of in progress, and then just moves to material at the end of the project? So from a perspective in the P&L, the WIP, the so-called WIP, would be expensed on an ongoing basis. The second method that we could utilise is that, depending on the way it's recognised for your monthly reporting, we could have a process that moves the WIP, as I think Bhavesh mentioned, from the asset account to the expense account, and then reverse it, at the beginning of the month and move on. So there's multiple ways of managing this without too much changes, without really a change in the design.
Yeah.
But we didn't want to build anything other than what's standard, and that's what Bhavesh has done. He said, this is standard, this is the way it's normally done. But as I mentioned earlier, let's talk to your finance people. Let's have that conversation so we can work out what the best method of recognition is.
Okay? No, that's fine. That's fine. Also on the not so much it has an impact on the WIP calculation, but so Bhavesh, like you use those phases. With the example that you're using is typically the physical phases, call it the production process. I do assume we can follow the same approach with the initial phase. In our case, that will be call it the design process, because that's that's the first phase in essence of the project. There won't be material, but there'll be labor. So there'll be time. And that also then has an impact on the WIP, right?
Yeah. You can have as many tasks as you want, as many phases as you want. I was just trying to make it simplistic. That's all, for the purposes of CRP.
That's fine. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. So, you can have one design phase wherein you record all your expenses for the design. So, and you can have a production. So these three are the production phases, basically, in this case.
Yep.
What I was just saying is, make sure your task ID in the production phase is exactly the same as your operation ID. Why? Because the system uses this code, the 0020, to go and update the revenue budget as 100%. If it does not find it, then it won't be able to update it. That's all.
Right.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Where's the table? Is there a default table for operation IDs?
When you say default,
is there like
so when we create a production order for my bill of material, right?
Yeah.
what the system does is it just takes all your operations and puts them in order of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, etc. It automatically does that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in your BOM, you may not have numbered them 10, 20, 30, 40, but it will still place it the way you've done it. It's just that the ID will change. So in your case, let me open the BOM first.
I don't know why they're not. I don't know why the column heading is not the same then. If operation ID has to equal project task.
So in your case, your operation ID is 22,000, 24,000, right?
Yeah.
If I create a production order for this, the system actually disregards this number and makes it 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. It will be in the same order as your bill of material. It won't change that, but these numbers will be disregarded. So in your project order, you also need to match this. There is no direct link between this field and the project task. So the only way to do this is to ensure whenever we create the project task is equal to the operation task. If I want to automate this update, if I'm happy to keep this manual, then I don't care about what this task says.
If you want to automate it, right?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, it can be whatever it wants, and then they will have to manually just say 100% over here. That's it.
Okay. Well, I'll create an authorization zone almost, and that zone can have its own work center. And as soon as that's marked as complete, then it can run the transaction. It won't be linked to any material ordering. It'll just be a
Basically, this gives you a lot of flexibility because tomorrow, if your control changes from 20 to 40, right? In your project, you just create 40. You don't have to create 20, and you get the flexibility. So you can manipulate that as and when that control point is.
Yeah.
That's all.
Do moves work based on work center?
Operations. Everything is based on operation. You complete a operation. See, your work centers repeat. Look at this. You have work center is a place to go and work. So I have two operations in the same work center in this bill of material.
Yep.
But my operations are different. So I complete each operation by a move.
Yep.
That's what I do. Okay. So once my production order is complete, from an accounting perspective, I need to go and close that production order. Okay. This is very important. Obviously, we will cover this in training, but it's not there in the process flow. But yeah. From an accounting perspective, this has to be closed. This can be kept on an automatic schedule. You don't have to manually do it, but yeah, has to be done. That basically marks the production order as closed, not completed, but closed, which is very important. See, now from completed, it's gone to closed. Yeah. And of course, I can run my final project billing as and when the house is delivered. I may have another couple of more tasks which I need to do. Maybe what do you say? Inspection or basic certification or anything. And then once my project is complete, I get my total expenses, total income, and then I can mark it as complete. Sorry.
That's something Jason needs to.
Yeah, this is the person who will. I mean, they are managing the project. They'll be doing that anyway, right? And they will mark the project as complete. And basically, that completes your entire cycle from start of the project to the completion of the project. And you should actually get a nice, your margin and everything should be calculated properly.
Obviously,
I've not taken your complete BOM, so obviously my margin is pretty good in this one.
Yes, Bhavesh, if only, eh? If only. All right.
Yeah, and that is the process. So, yeah, thoughts, please.
Thoughts you ask. Hey, Bhavesh, thoughts?
Yeah, your thoughts. Yeah, well, what do you think? Is
Our
it?
thoughts.
Yes.
So I think it definitely looks like it'll help us with our whole WIP calculation, which is a frustration at times. What I am concerned about is the releasing of materials. I'm just not. It's because I'm new to the system, but the release of materials. What utility lies in, like pressing a button and releasing materials to a job?
So there are two ways to do
it.
it.
Takes it out of the store and puts it into the WIP takes it off the inventory asset and puts it to the WIP asset.
So that's an accounting.
Yes, and even right? From a balances perspective, since you are maintaining inventory of these items, right? So if I had 10 screws or 10 packets of screws and I issued one packet of screw to the production order, system will say I only have 9 left now in inventory because one has been issued to the production order.
All right. That brings me to my second question.
Yeah.
So stock versus non-stock items, i.e. consumables versus once-off items, right?
Oh, yeah.
Now, yes, we can have consumables in here, but from a practical perspective, do we include the consumables, for example, in a BOM?
Yes, I have.
I mean, if you want to see the true picture and true cost of a BOM, then yes, you should.
So how do we track screws?
I've done it.
Oh, mate, and then what? And then what about wastage?
It gets written off. And we do a stock take at the end of the month and it rebalances.
But we didn't want to do stock takes all the time. We want to do stock take once a quarter, not once a month.
Well, we'll do it once a quarter then. But screws, like there's about 10 screws that we use all the time. Everything else fluctuates with color.
So it is up to you. You can decide what items you want to inventorize and obviously keep a stock of or not. I think Nathan has already done that. But yes, it is completely up to you on that part. Yeah. The small items, like you said, you can directly expense them to a production order by doing non-stock items, but which you don't want to maintain inventory of, which is fine. It'll still show up in the WIP. Okay.
At the moment, everything has to be classified as a stocked item, but I have a way to exclude items from a physical inventory count.
All right.
Okay. Sure.
So the maintenance, the maintenance of the system, thinking there would always be some housekeeping, right?
Yes.
Who would you advise typically be responsible for something like this?
Generally in a normal company, it would be the manufacturing manager. They would assign it because obviously all these entries in the system have to be managed. And I thought Nathan would be doing that. Or Nathan will have to delegate to a specific person to do it.
All right.
Yeah.
Who do you reckon should also sit into the user training later this week?
Oh,
yeah. And this is where UAT will come very important as well.
Yeah. So we'll have Stephen Bryce also sitting into this meeting later this week, gentlemen.
Okay, no worries. And like I said, UAT will be very important because that's what you'll be doing when you're testing the system. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Start from the beginning of the process to the end. And all these questions that you have, who's going to be managing the system? Who's going to make these entries in the system or this part of the process? That's something that you can decide during UAT.
All right. Now with this user training, at which point do you also want to have the conversation with finance, Marcus, as to the WIP calculation? When do you want to do that?
I think the timing of that, it doesn't have to be, it can be either before or after training. You know, I don't want to derail the training process, but I think it's a conversation that needs to be had. And I said sooner than later. You can either choose to have it this week or early next week. You know,
yeah, let's have it sometime next week. A few guys being off sick, almost the whole finance team. They are working not from home at this stage, so let's rather do it next week sometime.
Yeah, it's just a case of when we recognise those costs. So, you know, the things I've got on my notes from the session today is obviously we talked about the tracking of labour, and that's going to be a subsequent phase. How we're going to manage the promised dates on the purchase orders and whether we can change the update to the earliest date. If it's more than an hour, we'll provide a quote and get approval for that. And as you've just mentioned, Kenneth, the timing of recognition of costs, the discussion with finance is another issue, another thing. So, you know, Pravesh has gone through the whole process. Is there anything more you needed to show, Pravesh? Any reports or anything?
I mean, you have your normal production order reports, which I can cover during training, Marcus. It's all right.
Okay.
From a process perspective, this is where, process is complete.
I just want to make sure you're finished, that's all.
Yes.
So I suppose, as Pravesh said, comments, what we need to ascertain, is there anything that concerns you about the process? Is it has what we've delivered, based on your viewing this afternoon, has that met your expectations? Is it diverse from your expectations? Do you see any potential showstoppers? That's what we want to look at now before we move into the discussion on training.
I think from my perspective, the only concern I've got is the volume of material issuing to the operation. If that can't be done in a batch process or done quickly across multiple jobs on one day, it's just an increased admin.
Look, we have, but when we move, right, we probably move 3 times a week.
Yeah.
So, and then there'll be multiple move tasks.
Yeah. There'll be 20 odd move tasks.
Yeah, which you would
3 times a week
need to do it in bulk. All right. So, all right, now I move all these jobs, or 7 or 8.
This might allow us the flexibility to go, these jobs have moved, this one hasn't, and it's like we've got that park down the back there, it's stopped, but we've still got the whip there. So even though it's more, I think it'll help us.
Yeah. Look,
as far as material issues concerned, Nathan, you can use a wizard, okay, and this allows you to issue materials to multiple production orders in one go.
Okay.
And we can cover that during training. Don't worry.
Yep, great.
So that you don't have to worry about.
All right, no worries.
Okay.
Thank you.
My concern is just the utility of this without the labor component as at this stage.
First step.
Yeah.
I know.
Slowly catch a monkey.
All right.
Yeah. Look.
Slowly catch a monkey.
Yeah. One of the things that Pravesh clearly is I highlighted is, from a change management perspective, during the UAT, UAT forms 2 purposes. One is to obviously validate the system, make sure it works and fit for purpose, but the 2, to look at roles and responsibilities and make sure people understand, when you do go live, who's going to be pressing which buttons and when.
Yes.
Yeah. So some change management on your side, I guess.
Okay, we've got a little bit of time. Is there anything else you wanted to see on the system before I move on?
No, Marcus, I just want to ask you, this is something, yes, I think I've alluded to this with the whole work calculation. With your accounting background in manufacturing, if thinking that initial phase in like a job shop environment is more softer processes, it's not physical production. Is it the norm to also do a work calculation, thinking on, on design and so forth, thinking the time spent on design? Is it also included typically in a work calculation manufacturing environment from an accounting perspective?
Look, it depends on industry by industry, and I won't say I'm an expert in creating tiny homes, far from it. Like in general, there's certain costs that generally go straight to the expense and not through WIP. They are basically costs that are not either directly related to the end product, i.e. they're more general in nature. So if you've got things that are designed, if it's designed for multiple products, then that's not going to be wouldn't go to WIP. But if from a customer perspective, the design, you sit down with the customer, you do the design with the customer, and then you get the contract signed, and then you move forward. Then in those cases, generally, it would, from an accounting standard perspective, it would generally go through a WIP process.
I've kind of designed things that way as well. So engineering, color consultancy fees, engineering, design fees, all sits in the bill of materials.
Sure.
So yeah.
So the reason I'm asking that is I had we had a debate recently, because this is an issue for us, like coming up where with me being responsible for the P&L, at times we have large negative quantities if our initial stage payments are quite significant. I get penalized for that because the earned revenue, if you will, aren't realized on the soft side of the process. But from my perspective, I'm like, guys, I have my team working on this. It's an expense. It's earned revenue because we've now realized the income, from the client. So there's an expense to it, which is specific to the job. We won't design it. We are like a job shop. We won't design this if there's not someone that wants it, signed for it, and like paid for it. Any case, but be it as it may, I think this will work. This will support my argument. So
okay, I'll just share my screen again. So let's okay, so we've had the sort of discussion and questions. I suppose from what you've seen today, and I ask this question all the time at every one of these CRP sessions. Are you happy for us? Are you comfortable enough with what you've seen that we move to the training phase?
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yep. Then, so the next phase is key user training, which is this Thursday and Friday. User acceptance testing, cut over, and then they go live on the 21st of August, which is the planned date. So, as I mentioned, as agreed with yourselves, the training will be done by teams, and Bhavesh will conduct those in 2 2-hour blocks on the 1st and 2nd of August. Just so Bhavesh can understand, how many people are going to attend the training?
Four. Four.
Four. Okay. And I assume all four have licenses to the system.
Yeah.
I think we've got some on warehouse licenses. I don't think everyone's got access to manufacturing.
Okay. What you may want to do, work out with Bhavesh, and I'm easy on this, but it comes down to, do you want to show people who are on the warehouse license the production side of things, or do you think it will confuse them, or do you want them just to come in for the warehousing side of the training?
Well, I mean,
No, I think they need to have their license upgraded.
well, I think Steve,
Yeah.
Steve being your 2RC,
Yeah.
needs to be. Don't know about Bryce though.
Well, he can't create a bill of materials without manufacturing. So
is that the case? Do we need manufacturing for the bill of materials to create a bill of materials? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And then Steve would, he's a 2RC, but his function or his role, what functionality does he need?
well, that manufacturing, because he'll be running the updates on delivery dates and probably issuing all the material from the bill of materials that Bryce creates to the project. He'll run the move transaction potentially.
Can you guys advise us? So we have Nathan in the seat of procurement manager. So obviously he has that manufacturing module or whatever module you have, which is, I think, full rights actually. And then we have, in essence, that production estimator and a supply chain coordinator. Now there's shared tasks between those two. In terms of licensing, we have both of them on warehouse.
At the moment, yeah.
Both of them on warehouse. What would you advise?
I would suggest first see what their role is in this new process. If they happen to touch master data, then yes, they definitely need licenses to manufacture it. I think the warehouse person can do PO receipts, if I'm not mistaken. So if their role is
they can.
If their role is limited to just receiving material, then they don't. So you need to do, once you delegate duties on this new module that you implement, and then you decide who gets what license.
All right. So
if they're all going to be,
do we make that call? Do we make that call after the training?
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, during the UAT, you will have a much better idea of how you want to delegate which jobs in the system to whom. And then you can decide, okay, this person is only doing PO and PO receipts, so he doesn't need an extra license or an add-on license. But the other one, we are asking him to create a bill of material, do production move, production issue, then yes, they will need that additional license.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. We'll look at that.
Definitely, it's something to say. The easiest way to do it, I suppose, is say, okay, person X is going to do this thing. Can they try to do it with their license that they've got? If they can't, then we know that there's a shortfall. We've got to change the license.
Yeah.
Okay, so the user acceptance testing is scheduled to go from August the 6th to August the 14th. So Bhavesh will prepare the UAT environment on August the 5th and release it to you on August the 6th. We will have a UAT kickoff session on August the 6th. So as part of that session, what you need to have done, and we've already sent you what we call the UAT checklist. So Bhavesh prepared that. You've received that spreadsheet. So I think, Kenneth, you said, Nathan, that's all your responsibility. So what you really need to do is convert those test checklists into scenarios, i.e., what are you actually going to test, real life scenarios, and to make sure that you cover off each of those items that's on our checklist. But it doesn't mean that you should only do one test per item. You should look at, what type of problems or what type of, I won't say problem, but what type of challenges do you have when you build a tiny home and you're going to use this manufacturing process? What sort of things could happen? Customer changes their mind, different things that may happen. You should look at all those different types of scenarios and say, okay, how will I address that utilizing the system as it's built? So this is where we validate the system against agreed design and to make sure it's fit for purpose.
Yep.
And the opportunity for the users to understand those business processes in relation to the system operation, and obviously to reinforce the skills and training. You should start your UAT as soon as practical after the training, i.e. don't leave it all till August the 13th and 14th because they're going to forget and then that's not going to be a good outcome. What we do need to ensure is that we understand how you're going to test and who's going to test what, and that's what we'll be asking from you at the UAT kickoff. So it's just not a case of, okay, off you go, guys. You need to at least have populated our checklist. Say, okay, Nathan's going to test this. Person Y is going to test these things. Person Z is going to test these things. Just so everyone's aware.
Yep. No, that's fine, Marcus. We'll do that.
Yep.
So
fine. we'll look at that with you at the kickoff meeting.
Yeah.
And in red, it's a statement that goes without saying, but it's how often it seems to be ignored. But if you're not on keeping your eye on the ball, you've got to make sure you do testing. Think about everything, because I always buy Murphy's Law. The one thing you don't test, or you think, oh yeah, we won't worry about that, is the thing that's going to come to bite you. And when you're in a production environment and you're operating, you don't want to have untested issues. So the idea of testing is, one, to work out who's doing what, how's that going to happen. But two, try to pick holes in what Bhavesh has built, and Bhavesh will need to look at it and make sure,
we'll do that.
You do it that way.
You should run advisory sessions for CrowdStrike.
Well, you need to excuse me. I need to head off to another meeting. See you guys on Thursday. Sorry.
Thanks, Kenneth. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, that pretty much ends up the session anyway. So unless you've got anything specific, Nathan, we'll call it a session. Thank you. Thank you for your feedback, and thank you for your comments.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks very much for your help, guys.
Thank you, Nathan. I'll send the meeting invite for Thursday and Friday. I'll invite you and Kenneth. I don't know if Kenneth is going to join, but I'll put him as an option.
He will. Yep.
Okay. So just forward it to whoever else you need to attend as well.
Yeah, will do. And can you send me the copy of the recording, please?
Yes. Marcus, can you please do that? I think since you're the organizer, I think it will come to you.
I've stopped the recording first.